Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast, where we celebrate individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Carey Kish is our guest on the Outdoor Adventure Series today. Carey is an outdoor enthusiast, a travel writer, hiker, a beer enthusiast, and he is passionate about pairing the perfect New England trail with the perfect beer. Now, this comes through in his new book, Beer Hiking New England. Carey, it's a pleasure to have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Welcome.
Well, certainly nice to be on with you, Howard. Looking forward to it. This should be a lot of fun.
Fantastic. And I have to give a quick shout out to a mutual friend of ours, Jeff Alt, who introduced us when I interviewed him a couple weeks back on his podcast episode, which we'll have up the Get to Know You segment this week. And then when he said, I have to introduce you to this guy, Carey, he's a good friend of mine. He's into
fellow
hiking.
AT thru hiker.
Yeah, he's a thru hiker. Yeah, I'm just, again, I think I had shared while we were preparing to turn the mic on to record, is I sit at my desk a lot, and I'm thinking, you got Mount Katahdin that's your background. So the folks, when they see the Get to Know You segment, they're going to say, well, there's Carey. I get who he is, but what is he sitting in front of there? And that's Mount Katahdin.
And not only that, well, it's kind of the knife edge behind me, probably the wildest, most spectacular 1.1 miles of trail in the eastern United States. So.
Wow. Now, I've got to ask you, and again, for our listeners, you're going to see this in the Get to Know You segment. Is that the side that you walk up, or is there another? Do you walk up in the back? How do you get up there?
Well, there's about five, six different ways to get up Katahdin.
Okay.
And behind me is Pomola. You can get up from Chimney Pond or Roaring Brook. Then you come across the knife edge. You can also come up from the southwestern side, be the Appalachian Trail, the Hut Trail, or the A-Ball Trail, or you can come up from Chimney Pond via the Saddle Trail or the Cathedral Trail. There's a bunch of different ways to get up to the top. None of them are easy. And then once you're up there, if you dare, you find your way across the very airy, sometimes scary knife edge, which will change the way you look at things. Okay. It's crazy up there. It's beautiful.
I hope to see it someday. I don't know if it'll be on the back end of hiking the Appalachian Trail. You never know. Stranger things have happened.
There's always time.
There's always time. Now, I want to dive into the book because that's why we're here. Hiking and beer, two of my favorite topics. But for our listeners, if we could you provide just a little highlight reel, so to speak, of who is Carey Kish and how did you get into this love of hiking and writing and beer? How does this all come about?
Well, I've had a love for hiking for my entire life. Any patch of woods, the woods behind the ball field fence, the hedgerow off the park down the street, whatever it was. And that was in New Jersey. And then we moved to the Berkshires of Massachusetts. And I got a little older, got a little wilder. So wherever me and my pals could get to our little spider bikes, well, we were everywhere. Howard, I'd like to think that I'd love to write a book someday, honest to goodness, called Free Range Kids, because I grew up in a time where mom kicked you out the door and didn't want to see you back till dad sat down for supper at 5:30, 6 o'clock.
I remember that.
And we went everywhere and we did a lot of wild things. And I got that spirit instilled in me to explore and hike and travel and see things. Never lost it. Never lost. Been an entire lifetime hiking trails and looking for the next summit, the next what's around the next corner.
I love it. I love it. I am curious. This love of being out there exploring this adventure. Did it just come natural for you? Was there inspiration from brother or sister, mom, dad, aunt and uncle, grandparents that kind of help generate that initial spark?
Well, Dad spent 39 months in World War II in the Army, marching across North Africa and Europe. And he told us a lot of war stories as a kid. And there were a lot of the downsides to that, but there were also the upsides of listening to him talk and all of the adventures he went through a very serious time. And he would take me out for walks here and there on a Pittsfield State Forest in the Berkshires. So dad kind of got me started. My uncle gave me an old Boy Scout paddock and it kind of off I went. And then I started exploring on my own or with my friends, and it's just been great. I cannot get enough of it. I don't know. It's almost unexplainable.
I I am envious of that statement of what you just shared, and to me, it's a gift, and it should be a gift to anybody because I would like to think I make a difference in people's lives. I'm a business coach, a career coach. I do this podcast, but I sit at a desk doing it. Now I know I can get out and podcast remotely. That's on my hope, but just the idea that you're committed throughout the week or the weekend. Hey, where am I going to go hike today? And I get a sense in just the few minutes we've known each other that you're always thinking, where can I go next? Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Well, it's a beautiful thing. As a guidebook writer, I always have a purpose out there. I have places I want to be as well as places I'd like to be. So it's really a great mix. So I have a purpose all the time. And that's just beautiful. I've been writing professionally for 20 years now, and people will often ask me, aren't you ever going to run out of things to write about? And it's like, are you kidding me? I have a list as long as my arm, and I could have 10 arms. I don't know. There is so much, and topics keep coming up. I'll be honest with you, Howard. I had a 2-hour period last night that I woke up and couldn't sleep. And 2 stories on things to hike in the state of Maine came right to me. And I got up and I wrote them all down and I drafted out 2 stories. Silly me, there's no end to it. But it kind of follows the passion.
Yeah.
I love it. I just love being out there and I love writing about it. So it's great. I love sharing those stories. I've gotten to write for the Maine's largest newspaper, the Portland Press Herald Maine Sunday Telegram now since 2002. The idea that I can share my passion for the trails and the outdoors and conservation with all of those readers, it's wonderful. And I get a lot of great feedback. It's beautiful. It makes me happy that people will say, hey, I went on that hike. I saw that. That was great. Thanks for sharing that with us. Makes it all.
I love the guidebooks, and what's not lost also that your focus is in the New England area.
Yeah.
And how would you describe the New England area to someone who's really perhaps never even come to the United States? And I get this all the time because I live in Nevada, in Las Vegas. Hey, I'm coming out west. I want to see the Big Five in Utah, or go to Death Valley or Mojave National Preserve. What do you say to somebody that it perhaps hasn't even been on their radar? They need to visit the Northeast and all it has to offer. What do you say to somebody?
From a geographic standpoint, the diversity is amazing. I mean, you've got the Rocky Coast of Maine and the beaches. You've got Mile High Mount Katahdin. You've got the granite state of New Hampshire with the highest mountain in the Northeastern United States. I think most people know about Mount Washington. They once recorded 231 miles an hour wind gusts up there, highest ever in the world. The Green Mountain state of Vermont, the Connecticut River, the hills of Connecticut, the Long Island Sound, the Cape Cod of Massachusetts, the Berkshire. So you've got 6 states and they've all got different characters and within them, so many different geographies. It's extraordinary. I mean, most states have them. I mean, there's states like Colorado or California. I mean, we've all got this geographic diversity, but it's kind of all unpacked. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. It's great. There's just so much to do. And come autumn, we do have And I don't think this is actually arguable. I think we have the best foliage on the planet.
The greatest
And
show on earth.
it really is. And that's because of we're in that transition zone with our tree cover, between the temperate forest of the mid-Atlantic and the boreal forest to the north of us. And so you've got this amazing diversity of trees, and that also brings together a lot of different species at the northern edge of the range, their southern edge of their range. It's a great mixing ground. And boy, come September, October, when you get the golds and the maroons and the oranges and the reds on the trees, nothing like it. That's also when you can't get around on our roots.
There you go.
Because everyone's here.
My first OWAA conference, and for our listeners, you should know by now, Outdoor Writers Association of America. We have an annual conference every year, and I think I joined 2020 when I first moved to Las Vegas, and my first conference was 2021 in Jay Peak, Vermont. And I have to say, I was just totally blown away by the beauty and the colors. And at least I can say I've done it at least once, but you can say you've done it year after year. That's pretty spectacular as well.
Yeah. I try not to travel outside of New England too much during September and October, just for that reason.
Very
it's a pretty special place to be.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about the book, Beer Hiking in New England. And how does a book like this come about? Because I see hiking, all these great trails, every level of difficulty, and then I'm assuming a love of good beer.
Good craft beer.
Yeah. And when did this connection come about? Like, I should write a book where this confluence of great trails and great beers. How'd that come about?
It's a long and winding road, Howard. I think the idea of, I've always loved having a beer after hiking. You're hot and sweaty, you just come down off a mountain. What's better than a cold beer and a glass of water, right? But 20 something years ago, I hiked across the north of England, through the Lake District, the Yorkshire Dales and the North York Moors. It's 200 miles from the Irish Sea to the North Sea. It's called the Coast to Coast Walk. And every day I was out in the wilds, walking along out in the middle of nowhere. And then at night, each night I would tuck down into a little village, at an inn or something. And then, wander into the village center and have a pint or two with the locals at the time. And I thought, after 2 weeks of that, I thought, wow, this is just terrific. Hiking and beer. But it didn't gel with me quite yet. And then over the years, I started to write about hiking and beer here and there. And then I've been doing a regular column on hiking and beer. And then my lovely wife, about 5 years ago or so, said, I try to turn that into a book. And I got started on a book about hiking and beer in Maine, because it's where it's what I knew best. And at the time, there were 140 or so breweries. And I went right to town on that project, and I got far along on the field work and some of the writing. But the publishing world is an interesting place, and I couldn't find a publisher. So, with that disappointment in hand, I didn't know what to do. And then finally I got hold of this book called Beer Hiking Pacific Northwest. And I said, this is pretty cool. And I contacted the author. He says, you got to talk to my publisher, who ostensibly happened to be in Lausanne, Switzerland.
Oh, wow.
And at the time I contacted him, I was poolside with a beer in Key West, Florida, with palm trees over my head. And the publisher wanted to have a Zoom call with me. And there I am. So stranger things have happened. So I'm in Key West. He's in Lausanne, Switzerland. And he says, hey, you seem like the right guy for this project. And I said, no doubt I am, sir. And he says, but you got it. Would you do all of New England? And I said, I absolutely will. Publishing deal right there.
The
rest is a little bit of history. I mean, we've had plenty of bumps in the road getting this project done. There was, I took some time out to through hike the Pacific Crest Trail, and then we had COVID. So it took a little longer than I might have hoped, but things happened. But we came up with a good product.
I love it. And just in the map of, and so many possibilities
Yeah.
of good trails and good beer. And you also had Belgian beer on your list and some of the pubs that you would
I,
visit.
I, tr- I tried to highlight a little bit of everything. I
Yeah.
mean, New England IPAs are the dominant beer and they have been for at least a decade or so, but there's plenty of other good beer and people, if you're a craft brew drinker, you know that you can go to most any brewery brew pub and get whatever suits your palate.
Right. Right.
These breweries, they're making a little bit of everything. You can get porters and ales and stouts and seltzers and sours, in addition to the IPAs.
Gotcha. What does it take to produce a series like this or a book like this where you're matching up the trails and the beers? I mean, you did have, I know you had to have done a lot of hiking and drink a
Well,
lot of
that
beers.
sure as heck did on both accounts. But somebody had to do it, Howard.
Of
And
course.
I feel like I was the man for that job. Well, here's the challenge. We talked about New England, and I thought I knew New England. I've been here most of my life. Well, guess what? I had a lot to learn. I did an enormous amount of research. We have 10,000 miles of trails across the 6 states of New England. We have more than 700 breweries, brew pubs, tasting rooms, and whatnot. Where in the world do you start? So my research box or boxes were just huge. But even with that, a plan is just a plan when you get out in the field and you've got to match up, like you were saying, you've got to match up a hike that pops and you've only got 50 with a brewery that pops and you've only got 50. And sometimes there was a great brewery, but not a great hike. Sometimes there was a great hike, great hike and not a brewery nearby.
Mhm.
So it was this constant trial and error, mix and match. Some of the places I knew about, and others I just found as I drove by. I mean, which is one of the real beauties of the whole book. It was a journey of discovery, and that's what I would like readers to think of it as. There is so much to see and do in New England. So many trails, so many beautiful places, so many different landscapes. And the breweries are the same. They each have their own character. The breweries all have their own stories. The people who own these breweries and operate them are amazing. And I got to hear all of these stories. I met people on the trail, met people in the breweries. It's like, wow, there's so much out there. And I get to put it all down on paper, so to speak. Just wonder. There's a lot. There's a lot out there. And really, this is 50 hikes and 50 breweries, and it really guides you out it gets you to go out there and see things, and then you realize, wow, there's a lot more. So it's
You
a
could have a
journey of
part
discovery.
two. You could have part
Oh,
two.
I'd love that. I'd love that. We'll see. We'll see. I'm glad part one is done.
There you go. There's no rest at all allowed. Oh, so I'm
Yeah.
curious. Let's talk the trail and then the beer. How
Yeah.
did you decide, or what criteria did you use to select the best trail out of these 50? I know you visited a lot of trails, you walked a lot of trails, but how did you decide on these particular 50?
Again, there were some I wanted in the book and I was able to get them. There were others that I would have wanted to have in the book, but again, there wasn't brewery nearby. And there were some hikes I did that I thought were good. And they're like, okay, that's great, but I only have 50, so I'll just move along to the next one. And so that's where I ended up hiking probably 80 or 90 or so hikes to get. And I probably hiked 400 or 500 miles to get 260 that are in the book. I traveled 20,000 miles in my vehicle. So I crisscrossed New England. I camped out in the truck. I camped in my tent. I spent nights in hotels and family, friends. I camped up and down Vermont in their state park lean-tos, camped all the way across Massachusetts with my wife in our camper trailer. I saw a lot, and it- you know, because there was so much to see and so many decisions to be made. You know, like I keep saying, that there's a lot out there. Where and you want to have 50 good ones, 50 good hikes, and you want to, the couple other things that really played into this. My goal was to have good geographic distribution, and that was achieved. Definitely achieved that. And I wanted to have a variety of hikes. I wanted to have some easy hikes, around ponds, over hills, along the coast, on sandy dunes, that kind of thing. And then there's some rugged hikes up on Mount Washington, Mount Mansfield, the highest point in Vermont, um, places like that. And then a lot of hikes in between. So there's a big variety. Different landscapes, different lengths of hikes, and a little something for different ability levels. And at the end of the trail, of course, you know full well, always a good craft brewery with good beer.
So, and it reminds me of like the chicken or the egg, what came first. I would
Yeah.
imagine you also had some breweries, perhaps you had heard about word of mouth, or you just knew they existed, and like someday I'm going to have a beer in that brewery. How did that side of this adventure pan out for you on the beer side?
Well, again, I visited so many breweries. There were breweries that were next door to each other. Which one do I choose? Because Howard, to be honest, I've rarely met a beer I didn't like. That was a problem for me because
That can be a
you know,
problem. Well, good thing
my
you're
favorite,
hiking, though.
my favorite beer is the one in my hand. I swear.
I love
Um,
it.
so I just love beer, and I wanted to have all of these places fun. So I settled on the best combinations I could find, and I had to make some really tough choices in the end. And there'll be second and third editions, I hope, and I will filter some of these other places into the book and uh, kind of achieve a merry balance. We'll see.
Okay. So, if you could, let's take a particular hike and the pub at the end. What was that experience like? Getting to the hike, doing it, writing about it, ending it with a great beer. What was that? What was take us through? Paint a picture of what that looks like.
Absolutely. Well, let's take you to the most eastern point in the United States at Quai Head State Bar, right at the tip of Maine before you head across past Mutwadi Bay into New Brunswick, Canada. There's a beautiful state, but well, first of all, you have the candy striped lighthouse, which marks that easternmost point of land. And you have Quai Head State Park, and there's a 5-mile loop hike that will lead you all along the rugged cliffs along the coast. These cliffs are made of dark gray or black and gabbro, and you've got the waves crashing in. You're looking across the Grand Manan Channel to New Brunswick, Canada. You're looking up and down the rugged coast of down east coast of Maine. We call it the Bold Coast for a reason. And then you swing inland and you come to the easternmost bog in the United States. And who doesn't love a bog? Pitcher plants and sundews and all kinds of cool little creatures and stuff. So you've got this incredible hike with a lot of diversity. And then you go right into Lubec, which just so happens to be the easternmost town in the United States. And right on the waterfront is Lubec, Vermont. This simple little place. And Howard, this is where I really, I love these stories. Gail White, the owner and brewer, he makes a terrific lineup of German style beers. Um, he came to Lubec on vacation. He was a nuclear physicist. Came to Lubec on vacation in the mid 2000s. Fell in love with the place. Quit his career. Moved to Lubec and started a brewery, brewing beer that he loved and inviting realtors to come in. And he's been doing it ever since. So And he must brew 20 different kinds of beer, and they each have a salty me post stories. And he met his wife there, who's just terrific, McGinley Jones. She's got a very important job there. She maintains the corner flower garden where you can drink your beer on a nice day. And she is also the chief beer taster. Very important job. So you have this great hike kind of at the outer, at the end of the world in the state of Maine, in the country, and this little brewery, the smallest brewery in the state of Maine. And you sit around with locals and vacationers and other visitors, and everybody comes together, and it's all around the good beer. And we're swapping stories, travel stories. It's beautiful. And you can transfer that kind of joy, that kind of camaraderie and friendliness and around craft beer to the next brew pub and the next brew pub and the next brewery almost without fail. And I think that was the beautiful takeaway for me, is that I got to hike in these beautiful places and got to meet all of these terrific people who have fantastic stories. And they all work around beer. And what's not to love about that?
I love that. And I can imagine just the stories you have to tell, just given the experience and the duration of writing this book, doing the research. But any other discoveries or, oh my God, this is fantastic, or maybe you're got to bring the wife back here or tell my friends and family about this. Any other discoveries of note that you'd like to share?
No, classic example of finding a hike that you didn't know existed. I was trying to fill in a blank in southwestern Vermont, in the southern edge of the Green Mountains. And I'm coming across Route 9, beautiful drive. And I happened to stop at one of the highway waysides to read the interpretive signs, because I love doing that. I love finding out what I'm looking at and what's along the road. And one of the panels had this thing about Woodford State Park, which is just up the road. Happened to be the highest state park in Vermont. Well, I tootle in, and at the park entrance, there's a beautiful reservoir with a trail that goes around it. It goes into the Green Mountain National Forest. It goes into a federal wilderness area, the Georgia-Aiken Wilderness. It was fantastic. And guess what? There was a terrific pub in downtown historic Bennington, just down the road. I was able to put the two together. And I had no idea that was going to happen. And that happened a few times. I was just surprised. I was always surprised, pleasantly surprised. And that made it that much more fun. I didn't always know. I go back to the plan was just the plan until you got out in the field. And good things happen if you're receptive to it.
I love it. And I've got another question. It's a little bit of a tangent, and maybe this is another podcast episode. Who knows? But besides good beer, I'm a big fan of home roasting my coffee. To me, camping and the coffee, that view behind you on Mount Katahdin, I couldn't think of a better place to enjoy the sunrise or sunset with a cup of coffee or an adult beverage, depending on the time of the day, and also some good food. And does any interest in say coffee or food come into play for, say, a future adventure for you, and with hiking?
For a future adventure?
Yeah.
Oh, well, good food. I'm all over that. I love a good chow down after a hike. I'm an old AT through hiker. I love to eat. I like to eat and eat. So I'm always in search of a beer and a good place to eat after a hike. So
Okay.
there are opportunities plenty for that, and I'm always on the hunt for that.
I love it. I love it. Besides the adventures up in the Northeast that you've been on, how many times have you done the Appalachian Trail?
Twice. Once when I was 18, a long time ago,
Okay.
and 8 years ago in 2015.
Okay, so that's a good spread. And any different? I mean, obviously age, little different challenges, but how has that trail changed from when you were calling when you were a teenager to, an adult doing this again? Any changes that you
Oh yeah.
noticed?
Oh yeah. Well, that was 1977. I was fresh out of high school. The trail wasn't fully protected way back then. And in the ensuing years of my adult life, while I was busy doing other things, a lot of people were busy protecting the Appalachian Trail, buying up land, conservation acquisitions and conservation easements. And now the trail is, I think, 99 point something percent protected. And that just wasn't the case. So the trail way back when moved a lot because of, you know, relations with landowners and roads and housing development, this, that, and the other thing. And that's not so much the case anymore. Um, the trail still moves a little bit. And, the other thing, I just, there's a lot more people on the trail these days. I mean, I was one of maybe less than 100 through hikers way back when. And I think there were maybe 1,300 when I hiked in 2015. But that said, there is still plenty of solitude out on the Appalachian Trail. It's a busy place, but only in places. And it's a really worthwhile journey. And I think that goes without saying because a lot of people are out there trying to do it every year. It is the adventure of a lifetime. And Ed Garvey said that in his book, Appalachian Hiker, which was my Bible, if you will, when I was first looking at doing the trail as a kid. It's a journey like no other. Any log trail is, but the AT is particularly special. And for me to be able to hike it from Georgia home to Maine was extra special.
I could imagine. Can imagine. I'm curious. You said the word solitude, and how did you embrace the solitude? Because for some people, that's difficult. I mean, if you're extroverted and just love to be around people, and get your energy from being around people, versus yes, there's 1,300 people through hiking throughout the year, but any given day, you may not see anybody. What goes on for you in that solitude?
You've got to develop a comfort level. Everybody needs to hike their own hike, and people all do it in different ways. Um, for me, there is something about the daily rhythm, the simplicity of carrying everything you need on your back, and you're doing simple things. You're sleeping on the ground in a tent somewhere, maybe on top of the mountain. You're eating simple foods. You're cooking over a little stove. You don't have a lot of possessions, and you just walk along and you're free to think about whatever you want to during the day because you've got a lot of time. There's something, and again, like you say, it's not for everybody, but for me, I just find that extraordinarily addictive. And the Appalachian Trail, this last time, I had a guy in a local TV station here in Maine ask me, he said, "So what do you think about out there?" I said, "I think about everything. Everything. You have so much time. You're out there for 6 months. I was able to run the reel of my life all the way through. And then, Howard, incredibly, without knowing it, I was somewhere up in New England when I realized that I had walked for days and hadn't thought about anything because I had thought about everything. And that was a moment of nirvana that is difficult for me to explain, but I got there. And you can talk to any through hiker. They'll tell you a similar version of that. It may look different, but it's amazing. That's what you go out there. And you get that, the solitude and the simplicity. You're out in the mountains, you're on the trail, you have a goal. It's simple. You walk, you sleep, you get up, you walk again. And then someday, one of the days, you just run out of blazes, and you got to get back to they what it's.
I love it. I love it. Before we head out, Carrie, I am curious. One more question about the book and the feedback you have been getting as it is now available, and it's an exciting time for people. It's the summertime; people want to get out, and I'm thinking right now. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to live next. Should I leave Las Vegas? And I'm thinking, oh, there's New England. I should. I don't think I've looked at that yet, but what's been people's feedback to you when you've had a chance to do some readings or they've read the book? What's been their feedback, their aha moments?
Well, a lot of people have said, "Ian, you wrote the book I wished I
It's always
had."
good.
Yeah. I mean, I find so many people coming up to me and going, "Wow, what a terrific thing! I've been waiting for someone to do this. I love beer. I love hiking. Thank you for this." And you know what a my publishers turned, what a beautiful product they put together. I just gave them words and maps and photographs, and they turned it into this really nice book. And people are liking what they have in their hands, and they can't wait to get out there and use the thing. And I've been getting some good feedback from people who talk to me at shows and libraries and stuff, and they love it. They're looking for volume two of it.
I love it. That's fantastic. Well, I definitely hope to take advantage of the book sometime in the near future. Hopefully, my friends who I sent the link to the book to will say, Howard, come on out. We're going to do this. So who
Well, you
knows? I
come
may be
on out
knocking on your
anytime.
door.
I'll show you around. You come up to my home mountain desert island here. We'll take you around Acadia National Park. A nice hike, not too strenuous, and then we'll go for a good beer at Atlantic Gilly.
I love it. I love it. Listen, Carrie, before we head out, I'd like to touch back on two features we have on our podcast. One of them is called the aha moment. I mean, you've had a lifetime of adventure. Has there been a moment where you kind of think about, wow, I get to do this, or there's so much opportunity out here, and it's just I just I can't believe it pinched me. I'm doing this. Something that really just caused you to pause and take thought.
Well, I think I gave it away a little bit earlier. I just love the idea that I get to pursue two of my passions, beer and hunting. Hiking really is a number one. And then I get to combine that with writing about it. I have the unique, what the coveted, I think, job of sharing those stories and sharing those places with readers. And the feedback I get is just heartwarming, and it makes it all worthwhile. I love the idea that I can get out there and do these things, and people appreciate that. The idea that you can introduce people to a new place, you can let them know about the conservation that's going on, take them on a different trail. Folks love that, and I love doing that. So I have an aha moment like every day. I just wrote a story recently, one that I wanted to write for a long time about the Allagash Wilderness Waterway in northern Maine. And not the fact that I canoed it, paddled it like thousands of people do, but I went up there and did some hiking on some places you hardly would ever hear about. And I got a great amount of feedback on that. It's like, wow, that was great. Multiply that out throughout the years, and it's just been a terrific thing. I never take for granted the idea that I can write about the outdoors and people just enjoy reading it. It's terrific. And I know every outdoors writer, with theirself feels the same.
Fantastic. Any final thoughts that you would like to leave with our listeners before we head out? We call it an insight to go. Could be a book, a quote, or something to, I mean, what you're sharing today, in my mind, is a gift. It's a gift of get out of my chair and go be active, explore, do something, take care of yourself. But what would be your insight to go that you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Well, I shared the one with you earlier, Yoda from Star Wars. which I saw when I was on the Appalachian Trail back in 1977. Do or do not. There is no try. I'm asked all the time about how do you hike the Appalachian Trail? How in the world can you possibly do something like that? And I say, tell you what, let's go down to the bunk, get a beer, buy me a beer, give me your cocktail napkin and a pen, and I'll sketch it all out on the back of it. It's that easy. Because in the end, all the gear, all the books, everything, it doesn't matter. It's the doing that counts. Get out there and do it if you really want to do it. And you know what? This applies to everything.
Mhm.
Anything in life. It's a metaphor for life. Get out there and do it.
I love it. I love it. Carey, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where are the best places for them to go?
Well, I've got a website, maingeographic.com. You can also find me on social media, on Facebook and Instagram under my name. And I've got an email. Love getting an email on Maine Outdoors, surprisingly, Maine Outdoors at AOL.com.
Fantastic. Well, we will provide the backlinks to the website, your social sites, and share your email address as well. And I just, again, to me, today was a gift, and I love doing the podcast. I love meeting new people and hear about their adventures. And I am just reminded again, this episode reminded me that I sat at my desk and worked this weekend, and I should have been out. And I think your book I can't go wrong with a good hike and some good food and a beer afterwards. So I definitely think it's fantastic. And listen, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day.
Thank you,
and
Howard.
your work. And it's been a pleasure to get to know you. I hope our paths cross, either coming out for a visit or perhaps seeing you at an OWAA conference or online. But it's been a pleasure to have you on the show and have you, chat about your new book, Beer Hiking New England. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Howard. You made it easy, and I hope we do get to cross paths again. You're always welcome here on the coast of Maine. You'd love it.
Thank you so much. Listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a quick close, and then you're not going to have a final chat. All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Carey Kish, an outdoor enthusiast, travel writer, lover of hiking, and lover of good beer, and also obviously good food, because you have beer and food after a nice hike. And his book, Beer Hiking New England, The Tastiest Way to Discover Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. Now, we're going to provide you a backlink to the book and backlinks to Carey's website and social sites. And what a treasure and if you ever wanted to explore New England, this is definitely the way to do it. And we hope you take advantage of it. And again, we really appreciate Carey taking time out of his day. And I always really was grateful to kind of learn more about him and his work, and also to hear that he is a fellow OWAA member as well. As for us, you can find this episode shortly on our website, outdooradventureseries.com. We are also on Facebook and LinkedIn, the Outdoor Adventure Series pages. We have a YouTube channel, Outdoor Adventure Series. And of course, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts from. Just search for Outdoor Adventure Series. Now, we like comments, shares. If you go on some of these hikes and you've picked up the book, you've made some choices, let Carey know, let us know, and we'll share it with Carey. But go out there and, as he had suggested, just get out there and explore. Take care of yourselves, have fun. Life is to be lived, and just go out there and enjoy it. And until next time, again, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and we will see you on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.